For a physician named Dr. Islam, it was supposed to be, well, a grim but routine part of the job. An autopsy. On his table was the body of Abu Sayed, a 23-year-old student activist. And the cause of death was brutally clear: multiple shotgun pellet injuries, homicide. So he wrote his report, but then the pressure began. He was forced to rewrite it 5 separate times. The administration wanted him to lie, basically, to state that Sayed wasn't killed by a security officer's shotgun, but by stones thrown from his fellow protesters. They even offered him a 7-day vacation to Thailand, to help him reconsider his medical findings. He refused. This desperate, almost clumsy attempt to falsify the cause of death for just one single student. It tells you everything, really, about the final frantic days of Sheikh Hasina's 15-year rule in Bangladesh. That one death, and the lie they tried so hard to tell about it, became the spark. It turned a student protest into a full-blown revolution that would topple a government in a matter of weeks.
That's a deeply unsettling event. And it really serves as a powerful kind of visceral entry point into what is a remarkably complex story. Today, we're really going to dig into this, unpack how a nation, which for years seemed, held firmly under a longstanding government, just rapidly reached this critical breaking point. And we'll explore the surprising and often intertwined forces, both digital, yes, but also profoundly human, that played pivotal roles in this dramatic and very swift shift. This isn't just recounting events. It's more about exploring resilience, manipulation, and the unexpected triggers of such huge change.
Okay, so to really grasp the intensity of this July uprising, we need to rewind a bit. Let's understand the underlying tensions that were sort of simmering beneath the surface. The initial spark, the ignition point, was actually a high court decision back on June 5, 2024, to reinstate a government job quota system. Now imagine yourself, maybe you're a young, ambitious Bangladeshi. You're trying to navigate an incredibly competitive job market, and then you're told that a staggering 56% of all available government jobs are reserved for specific categories. That leaves only a meager 44% for open, merit-based competition.
Right, 56%, that's huge.
Exactly. And this wasn't just a minor set-aside. It included a substantial 30%, specifically for descendants of 1971 war veterans. That's a deeply sensitive, historically charged point in Bangladesh. Beyond that, you had smaller quotas too, but still impactful for women, people from marginalized districts, ethnic minorities, people with disabilities. So in a country with such a dense population, millions of educated young people all vying for limited opportunities. A system like this, perceived as fundamentally unfair, well, it quickly became a powder keg.
Yeah, it felt like a direct roadblock to their futures, didn't it?
Completely.
And it's truly striking how quickly a seemingly, administrative legal ruling, maybe designed initially to honor historical sacrifice, could ignite such widespread and really deep-seated frustration among the youth. The initial response from the students, it's important to note, was remarkably peaceful. Their demonstrations were rooted in a clear demand: reform this quota system or just abolish it entirely. But what profoundly changed the trajectory, what really escalated things, was the government's response and the response of its allied forces.
Okay, so it wasn't just about the quotas anymore.
Not for long. It very quickly escalated into something much larger, a direct challenge to authority, really, because the government chose to suppress dissent rather than engage meaningfully with grievances. That decision transformed a specific issue into a much broader rejection of the state's heavy-handed tactics.
And the Awami League-led government, under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, they really unleashed overwhelming force, didn't they? Law enforcement agencies working with the ruling party's student wing, the Chhatra League, which has a pretty ominous reputation, they imposed this severe, often brutal crackdown. For many people watching on social media, this was before the big internet blackouts we'll get into. The visual evidence was just horrifying. You had images, videos showing police and Chhatra League members using batons, tear gas, even reports of firearms against unarmed student demonstrators.
A very public display of state power against its own citizens.
Exactly. And far from quelling the unrest, it just seemed to fuel a deeper sense of outrage, of solidarity. It created martyrs, really, and galvanized public opinion against the government.
Which brings us to that crucial question. What is it that transforms a largely peaceful demonstration, even one facing harsh suppression, into something far more volatile, something, well, revolutionary? In this specific case, the tragic death of Abu Sayed, that 23-year-old student activist we mentioned at the start, on July 16th in Rangpur, that became the critical turning point. His death wasn't just seen as another casualty in some skirmish. It was widely perceived as a direct, unprovoked killing by the authorities.
So that single death pushed things into a violent phase.
Undeniably. It transformed a movement for job reform into a direct, almost existential challenge to the regime's legitimacy. It became a fight for life and dignity against what people saw as state tyranny.
And if that wasn't enough, just 2 days before Abu Sayyid's death, on July 14th, Prime Minister Hasina made a comment that, well, it poured fuel on the fire, didn't it? After a visit to China, she publicly said something like, "So that means the children of freedom fighters aren't talented? Only the children of collaborators are talented."
A direct, emotionally charged jab at the protesters.
Absolutely. Clearly trying to delegitimize them by implying they were aligned with those who opposed Bangladesh's independence in 1971. And just for context, the term collaborator, or razakar in Bangladesh, that brands someone with the deepest possible stain of treachery, it refers to those who sided with Pakistan during the brutal 1971 Liberation War.
So, stepping back to consider the bigger picture, this comment, maybe it was intended to rally support for the quota system by playing the nationalist card,
Yeah.
But it had the precise opposite effect. It struck an incredibly raw nerve across the society. Thousands of protesters immediately adopted these new defiant chants. They started publicly labeling Hasina a dictator, and ironically, they co-opted the very term collaborator against her.
Turning your own words back on her.
Exactly. The historical weight of that term, when hurled back at the prime minister by the very youth she was condemning, that was a powerful act of defiance. And this rhetorical escalation from the top was almost immediately met with physical force on the ground. Just a day later, July 15th, you had police, security forces, alongside those ruling party student and youth wings, actively engaging in brutal suppression, hitting unarmed student protesters, including women, with tear gas, sound grenades. The intensity was undeniable. It signaled the regime was ready to use extreme measures.
Okay, so the protests explode, they're gaining momentum nationwide, and the government's response is swift and drastic, a nationwide internet shutdown. This digital blackout starts on July 18th, which tragically also happened to be the deadliest day of the protests up to that point. The intent seems pretty clear: stop online activism, cut communication lines, prevent organization, basically blind and silence the uprising.
And the impact was immediate and verifiable. Cloudflare Radar, they monitor global internet traffic, confirmed a near-complete internet outage across Bangladesh. Their data showed traffic just dropping to almost zero around 9 p.m. local time. This wasn't just, an inconvenience. It was a deliberate, severe, strategic move to control information flow, isolate dissent, and crucially, control the narrative. Stop real-time updates getting out.
Right. And the protesters recognized how critical this was.
Absolutely. The anti-discrimination students movement, the main protest group, was even forced to suspend their demonstrations for 2 days. And their specific demand: restore the internet. That really highlights just how vital digital connectivity was for their ability to mobilize, coordinate, and get their message out.
But there was a brief reprieve. It wasn't a total blackout indefinitely at first.
Sort of. The ICT minister at the time, Zunaid Ahmed Palak, announced a partial restoration, but prioritized essential services banks, export sectors. Likely a pragmatic move, probably driven by the immediate economic hit that was starting to cripple key industries. So by July 24th, broadband was back for many, and mobile internet followed by July 28th. That ended that initial 10-day blackout. But even then, major social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they remained stubbornly blocked until July 31st.
So still trying to limit the platforms where organization was really happening.
Precisely. It showed a continued, very targeted effort to limit that widespread communication, acknowledging just how powerful those platforms were in fueling the protests.
But the calm didn't last long, did it?
No, incredibly short-lived. Renewed unrest flared up again on August 2nd, and almost immediately we saw the same pattern. Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram restricted again. Facebook and Messenger flickered back briefly, but Telegram stayed blocked. A persistent selective control. Then, August 4th became the single deadliest day of the entire protest period. A horrifying toll. Around 91 fatalities recorded, including, tragically, some police officers as well, and the government's response. Another nationwide internet shutdown, directly linked this time to the escalating violence. A desperate attempt to regain control through information deprivation.
And then, just 1 day later, August 5th, Sheikh Hasina resigns and flees. And what happens to the internet?
It starts coming back with remarkable speed. Broadband was back by 1:00 p.m. Cellular internet followed just an hour later, after 2:00 p.m. The almost instantaneous return of services right after her departure really speaks volumes, doesn't it? It confirms these weren't technical issues. They were tools of state control, politically motivated. Though even then, some social media platforms still faced restrictions as the new interim government was finding its feet. A cautious approach, perhaps.
The economic fallout from all this, cutting off the internet repeatedly, must have been huge.
Immense. Truly immense. A devastating blow to the nation's economy. These shutdowns hit critical banking services, crippled the vital export sectors, especially the ready-made garment industry, which is huge for Bangladesh, and just broadly disrupted everything. One estimate, possibly conservative, placed the cost at a staggering $10 billion.
$10 billion.
For a developing nation, that is catastrophic. And looking at the bigger picture, it just reveals the sheer desperation of a regime willing to inflict that level of suffering on its own country just to cling to power. It underlines their commitment to suppression by any means, even national economic ruin.
And after Hasina's government fell, there was an investigation into these shutdowns.
Yes, the new Ministry of Posts, Telecommunications, and Information Technology launched one pretty quickly. An independent 7-member committee put together a preliminary report. And its findings were crucial. It explicitly found that the former ICT minister, Zunaid Ahmed Palak, had verbally ordered the shutdown. He directly instructed the Bangladesh Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, the BTRC, to disable services. So not a technical glitch, but a direct command.
Bypassing normal procedures.
Completely. And the report didn't stop there. It explicitly stated the disruption had no connection to a data center fire that Minister Palak had initially cited as the official cause.
So the fire story was just a cover.
Effectively debunked by the committee. And furthermore, the inquiry found that both the shutdown and the later restoration of mobile services happened without proper administrative approval from the relevant government division. It's just a clear, damning indication of a government operating outside established norms, circumventing due process, disregarding legal frameworks in that desperate bid to maintain control, power over process.
Okay, so the state strategy was clear. Cut off communication, isolate, control. But then something truly fascinating happened. The protesters adapted, they evolved, they found ways around it that the government just couldn't anticipate. It really speaks to human ingenuity under pressure, doesn't it?
It really does. And this is where we see that profound shift in the dynamics. In the very absence of centralized leadership, the kind the government tries to target the movement became completely distributed. Think of it like this. The state was fighting a traditional war, trying to cut off the head. But the protesters, without a clear head, were operating like a decentralized network, like a swarm.
A swarm. I like that analogy. Harder to target.
Exactly. It made them incredibly elusive. Difficult to neutralize through conventional methods, like arresting leaders or shutting down central communication hubs. The battlefield shifted from a hierarchy to this fluid, interconnected web.
Can you give us an example? How did this actually work on the ground?
Let's take a hypothetical but representative case. Imagine a university engineering student. Let's call her Enika. Not a leader, just an ordinary person caught up in it all. When the internet goes down, her first feeling isn't anger, maybe it's just panic, she's cut off. But then a message trickles through on a slow, text-only mesh networking app. You know these apps. They let phones talk directly to each other, forming a local network even without internet.
Ah, right, peer-to-peer.
Exactly. Someone has shared this app weeks earlier, just in case. A bit of foresight. The message Anika gets is simple, urgent. Police blocking Gulshan Circle. Need route to Bailey Road. Share live info. In that moment, Anika spontaneously becomes a vital node in this emerging network. From her dorm window, she can see a side street that looks clear, a route others might not know about. So she types back. Try lane 5, behind the market, looks empty. Seconds later, another anonymous user replies, Lane 5 is good, we're moving. She never knew who she helped, they never knew her. But that immediate, anonymous, collaborative information exchange, that's the essence of digital resilience, ordinary citizens becoming the network.
Wow, so thousands of people like Anika were doing this.
For days, yes. Thousands became the collective eyes and ears. They used VPNs when connections flickered back, shared downloaded offline maps, relayed crucial info through this fragile, distributed digital web. And the beauty of it, its resilience, was that there was no single head to cut off. No handful of leaders to arrest to stop things. It was fluid, adaptive, constantly rerouting. Traditional suppression tactics were just less effective.
So this really gets to that idea you mentioned earlier about analyzing the strategic effectiveness of this decentralized approach, story 1.
Precisely. It represents a profound shift in the power balance. The government was trying to decapitate something with no head, an elusive, Hydra-like thing. It powerfully illustrates that digital resilience isn't just about the tech, it's a mindset. It allows ordinary citizens, through small strategic contributions, to form a powerful, adaptive network that can undermine even severe state repression. When official networks go down, people become the network, and that's a force much harder to contain. A crucial lesson, really.
Let's loop back to the story of Dr. Islam, the physician who refused to falsify the autopsy. That really sets the stage for how far the regime was willing to go. It wasn't just covering up a death, it felt like an assault on truth itself.
It really did. And placing that in the broader context, the attempt to falsify Abu Sayyid's autopsy, it just speaks volumes about the deep corruption and desperation within the Hasina administration. Think about it. A physician, bound by ethics, pressured 5 times to lie, offered bribes like a luxury vacation. It shows a shocking disregard for medical integrity, for objective fact. Dr. Islam's refusal, despite the pressure and the risks. It was this incredible act of quiet defiance, a stand for truth in a system seemingly intent on obliterating it.
And this willingness to manipulate evidence connects directly to the use of force, doesn't it? This brings us to that chilling leaked call.
Yes, the one verified by Al Jazeera and the BBC, a leaked recording of Sheikh Hasina herself. In this call with Sheikh Toppled, the mayor of Dhaka South at the time, Hasina gives an open order, her words, to use lethal weapons against protesters.
Will you repeat what she said? It's quite stark.
The recording captured her saying, "My instruction has already been given. I have given an open order. Now they will use lethal weapons. They will shoot wherever they find them. This has been instructed." Unambiguous.
Wow. Shoot wherever they find them. That's horrifying.
It truly is, and it begs the question, what kind of pressure or mindset leads a leader to issue such a command against their own people? The statistics that followed are grim evidence. Official records show 841 protest-related deaths. UN estimates go even higher, up to 1,400. And crucially, 78% of these deaths were from firearms, including military-grade ammunition. Ballistic research even found evidence of 7.62 by 39 millimeter rounds, the kind used in AK series rifles, fired from Bangladesh Ordnance Factory weapons.
So this wasn't just police sidearms, this was military-level force.
Exactly. This data, combined with the leaked command, it paints a clear picture of the regime's willingness to use widespread lethal force. This directly addresses the long-term implications of that documented use of legal force and evidence manipulation on democratic institutions, story 2. It shows a state turning its deadliest weapons on its citizens to crush dissent.
And the official response to the leak was denial, right? Claiming it was AI-generated.
Yes. The Awami League quickly denied it, called it AI-generated, fabricated to defame Hasina. They tried to cast doubt, saying a forensic audio firm couldn't confirm its authenticity with full certainty.
That full certainty line sounds like lawyer speak.
It does. And what's revealing here is the pattern. Sources, describe Hasina with terms like pathological liar, suggesting her claims needed careful checking due to a documented history of spreading false information confirmed by court rulings in Bangladesh even. For instance, after she was ousted, she falsely claimed widespread persecution of minorities, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, linking it to an ISK-Con leader's arrest. This was despite numerous communal attacks on minorities happening during her own rule, which her government often failed to prevent. So this history undermines their denial of the leaked audio. It shows a pattern.
The long-term damage from this kind of systemic manipulation of truth, it must be a profound story too.
Absolutely chilling. When a government repeatedly tries to manipulate truth, to rewrite reality, it forces every citizen into a moral crisis. The damage isn't just a bad human rights record or a death toll. It's the deep erosion of public trust. Trust in doctors, trust in courts, trust in the government itself. Rebuilding that fundamental trust, that shared belief and objective fact, that will take generations. It leaves society fractured and deeply skeptical.
So you have this government trying desperately to control the narrative, denying reality. But then a single individual with access to the truth can shatter that control, like that leaked call.
Yes, and the bravery required for that act as well. It's immense. Imagine being a mid-level technician in a government communications monitoring center, a routine job. And then one day you hear an internal broadcast, live, the prime minister authorizing lethal force.
It must have been a profound shock.
Absolutely. The official news talks about miscreants, necessary force. But this voice, the highest authority, is sanctioning killing. The technician knows leaking it means potential ruin, never going home again. but driven by conscience, maybe thinking of students the same age as their own family. They use encrypted channels, public Wi-Fi, get the file to an international journalist, not an activist, just a witness who believes the world needs to know. It's pure moral courage.
And the state's response, calling it an AI fake, that was predictable.
Entirely predictable. It's the modern playbook for dismissing inconvenient evidence. But the authentication, the digital forensics that verified the leak, that completely shattered the state's narrative. That verification became the digital key unlocking the truth. And this really highlights the critical role of independent media and digital forensics in challenging state-controlled narratives. Story 3.
So one authenticated leak, amplified by independent media, can bypass all the official propaganda. Story 3.
It can. It delivers undeniable proof to the public, to the international community. It forces a confrontation with the facts, however ugly. In an era of deepfakes and state information control, the conscience of one individual with access, that can become the most powerful weapon for Truth Story 3. It's a reminder that truth often finds a way out, no matter how inconvenient.
Let's talk about social media and all this. It really seems like a double-edged sword here.
Absolutely. On one hand, it was transformative. It turned student protests into a massive national movement. Imagine your phone just flooding with raw videos, photos, posts from the ground, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, unfiltered images of crackdowns, of resistance. It sparked outrage, solidarity across the country, real-time news bypassing state media.
Connecting people directly to the drama.
Exactly. And it wasn't just domestic. Social media galvanized support from the huge Bangladeshi diaspora, over 7 million people living abroad. They acted as amplifiers, sharing videos of police brutality, calling for international support. Hashtags like #BangladeshRising, #SupportBangladesh protest trended globally, drew immense international attention, far quicker than traditional media might have.
But then there's the dark side. The manipulation.
Yes, this is where it gets really murky and, frankly, dangerous. Social media became a battleground for competing narratives, ripe for manipulation. Remember Hasina's collaborators' comment, that deeply sensitive term, Razakar. It was weaponized online. The hashtag I am Razakar started trending, ironically reclaiming this term of treachery, historically linked to anti-Hindu violence during the 1971 war. A deliberate move to stir sectarian division and demonize protesters.
Wow. Twisting history for political gain.
Precisely. And it raises that vital question. How quickly can a narrative twist? Once the internet was partially back and the quota issue was technically resolved, the movement didn't end. Instead, it took on this more political and tragically sectarian tilt. Reports came in of Hindu temples, businesses, homes being raided, ransacked, burned, a horrifying echo of past violence. Yet simultaneously, counter-narratives flooded the same platforms. Hashtags like #HinduSafe in Bangladesh popped up, trying to claim the violence was exaggerated or fake, controlling perception, deflecting blame.
Yeah, and it went beyond hashtags. There were rumors, deepfakes.
Oh, yes. Rumors spread like wildfire, false claims that Indian agents were attacking Muslim protesters, fueling suspicion and hostility. No verification needed, just amplified fear. And then sophisticated deepfakes emerged, like one showing the exiled opposition leader Tariq Rahman seemingly telling supporters to stay quiet about the Israeli campaign in Gaza. Given the strong pro-Palestinian sentiment in Bangladesh, that was almost certainly a calculated move to turn public opinion against him, leveraging a global conflict for domestic politics.
It's deeply unsettling how platforms designed for connection can be weaponized like that.
It is, to sow confusion, manipulate opinion, incite violence by preying on existing prejudices and fears, and the long-term consequence. This pervasive erosion of trust. Trust in information sources, trust in institutions, even trust in each other. Truth becomes a constant battleground, fracturing society.
Let's look at the broader context of Hasina's rule. This wasn't a sudden shift to authoritarianism, was it? It was more gradual.
Exactly. A gradual, skillful consolidation of power over 15 years. She moved from being seen as a democratic champion to a clear autocratic leader. She was very adept at deepening divisions rooted in the 1971 Liberation War. Prosecuting war criminals, many conveniently being opposition leaders, allowed her to frame her Awami League as the only true pro-liberation force. Her government even orchestrated public protests, like the Shabab protests, to seemingly legitimize these prosecutions, making it look like popular demand.
Using history as a political weapon.
A defining hallmark of her regime. And when the student protests erupted in 2024 over those quotas rooted in the war, she didn't hesitate to label them Razakar traitors, a deliberate attempt to delegitimize them. It failed in the end, but it shows the strategy. Demonize dissent, sacrifice unity for political gain.
And there were structural changes, too, that cemented her power.
Oh, absolutely. A key move was abolishing the caretaker government system back in 2011. That was huge. The caretaker government was designed as a neutral body to oversee fair elections, a check on the ruling party's influence. Eliminating it fundamentally changed the democratic landscape. It paved the way for her party's controversial wins in 2014, 2018, and 2024 elections, consistently marred by opposition boycotts and accusations of rigging because they just weren't seen as fair.
Were there other legal maneuvers?
Plenty. Her government tried, in 2014, to give Parliament power to remove Supreme Court judges, a direct hit at judicial independence, though the court rejected that. And the Repressive Digital Security Act, DSA, of 2018, widely criticized for targeting dissent. It was simply repackaged as the Cybersecurity Act, CSA, in 2023. Same stringent provisions, basically, including warrantless arrests for online offenses, just an unwavering commitment to controlling expression through law.
Now, there's another layer here suggesting external influences, claims about U.S. involvement.
Yes, this adds a whole other dimension. Leaked documents reported by the Gray Zone suggest the U.S. government, through the International Republican Institute, IRI, was involved in efforts to, quote, destabilize Bangladesh's politics to achieve a power shift. The claim is this was done by coaching opposition parties and building a regime change network, especially among urban youth.
Coaching opposition parties. Establishing a network? That sounds like significant involvement.
It does, and it raises that complex question. Where's the line between promoting democracy and actively influencing regime change? The IRI, which is linked to the Republican Party and funded via the National Endowment for Democracy itself, often criticized for involvement in regime change ops, reportedly spent millions leading up to Hasina's fall. Their alleged frontline foot soldiers, according to these documents, were this intriguing mix. Rappers, ethnic minority leaders, even LGBTQI+ activists hosting transgender dance performances, sometimes apparently with U.S. Embassy officials present.
Rappers and activists. That's quite a mix.
Isn't it? The IRI even apparently bragged internally about promoting hip-hop, a uniquely American art form, citing music videos by rapper Tawfiq Ahmed that explicitly encouraged protests and street movements to build dissent, a kind of cultural strategy, leveraging art for political ends.
And what did these documents say about the main opposition party, the BNP?
Ironically, the IRI's own internal documents apparently showed the BNP was seen as unpopular and directionless, unable to mobilize support effectively on its own. This suggests, according to the source of these leaks, that this U.S. intelligence-linked group believed a direct social empowerment project through street actions was needed for their desired power shift, rather than just backing the existing, perhaps weaker, opposition, building dissent from the ground up.
How does this connect to the bigger geopolitical picture?
Well, it presents a compelling counter-narrative to the idea of a purely organic uprising. Hasina herself had publicly accused Washington of wanting her out for refusing a U.S. military base, a demand, she claimed, from a country of white-skinned people. Then her replacement, Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate with close ties to the Clintons, stated the revolution was meticulously designed, not spontaneous. And Yunus's new foreign minister was apparently involved in a U.S.-side workshop for reporters on countering misinformation. Taken together, these points, as presented by the sources reporting them, strongly suggest a calculated realignment of Bangladesh towards the U.S. Indochina policy. Significant geopolitical motivations potentially intertwined with the internal dynamics. It's a complex picture.
So August 5th, Hasina resigns, flees to India, the end of a 15-year era. A dramatic outcome.
Absolutely, an outcome few could have predicted weeks earlier, highlighting the unpredictable power of mass uprising.
But the human cost was immense.
Staggering. Officially 841 deaths, UN estimates up to 1,400. Over 12,000 injured. Billions in economic damage from the unrest, the blackouts, the disruption. In the immediate aftermath, the military stepped in to stabilize things, and an interim government led by Muhammad Yunus took power. Initially expected to be short-term, but now reports suggest they might govern for up to 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years, that indicates a long period of transition and uncertainty.
A very protracted period, and the legacy of the Hasina years weighs heavily. The human rights situation, democratic institutions, they took a severe hit. Internet freedom steadily declined, throttling, censorship, arrests under laws like the DSA and CSA. Journalists, activists faced violence, harassment, widespread self-censorship. A real chilling effect.
And the state wasn't just suppressing, but actively manipulating online information too.
Yes, sophisticated manipulation. Networks of fake experts praising government policies, circulation of deepfakes to discredit opponents. Plus, cyber attacks against financial and government bodies increased, further destabilizing the information environment. A multi-front information war, really.
So, the fall of Hasina, sparked by that student's death in the cover-up attempt, leaves Bangladesh at a critical point.
A real juncture. The BNP, the main opposition, once sidelined, is now potentially positioned to regain leadership. Their leader, Khaleda Zia, was released from prison almost immediately after Hasina left. A dramatic shift.
What are the biggest challenges facing the interim government now?
The legacy is deep scars. Democratic erosion, the use of lethal force, the manipulation of truth. The challenge is immense. They need to rebuild trust in shattered institutions, implement meaningful reforms that address people's grievances, and navigate this complex mix of internal discontent and those significant external influences we discussed. The path forward is fraught, uncertain. But it's also a moment with the potential for real democratic renewal, a chance for citizens to reclaim their voice.
What we've really unpacked here in Bangladesh is just a powerful testament to the unexpected ways citizens can reclaim their voice, even facing overwhelming state control. It's a story where, the integrity of one doctor, the courage of an anonymous technician, the decentralized power of a student movement, it all converged to dramatically shift the destiny of an entire nation.
It's a vivid illustration, isn't it? How the digital age offers both these liberating tools for mobilization and, at the same time, potent instruments for state repression and control. That duality is key. It forever alters the landscape of dissent in governance. The dust hasn't fully settled in Bangladesh, and the full implications of this historic uprising will continue to unfold for years to come. It serves as a powerful reminder, I think, of both the fragility and the remarkable resilience inherent in that relentless human pursuit of truth and self-determination.